Hey guys, welcome back to a new episode of DevDrawer. Today I'm going to be going over some of the really cool things that you can do inside of PHP 8, specifically version 8.1. Most of the stuff I'm showing you will work in 8 as well, but there's maybe one of them that won't work in 8, but it will work in 8.1. So, if you're thinking about which one you need to switch to, 8.1 is stable, and it's the better version right now. There's a few more things inside of it. So first thing I'm going to do is I created this PHP info on my index so I can show you that I am using 8.1.3. And I've also created a PHP 7 and a PHP 8 file. This is essentially what we're going to use to kind of separate our code. So I'm going to show you what it looks like in PHP 7, and then we're going to run it, and then I'm going to show you the corresponding version of it in PHP 8. So let me go ahead and delete this file, and I'm going to open up 7 and 8. And then we can start here at PHP 7. So I'm going to open up our PHP 7 file, and the first thing I want to show you is the NULLSafe operator. So I'm just going to put a comment in here so we know what we're doing. So NULLSafe operator, and this is basically, you may be familiar with null coalescing in PHP 7, where it's essentially this, where it shows you if it's true or false. We can also utilize this inside of classes inside of PHP 8, so that if you're returning or sending a null value, instead of it either timing out or not timing out but breaking, or just showing you a blank, you can get it to do what you want it to do with less code. So in order to show you this, I'm going to create some simple classes. So let's do class user, and then I want to create a public function, and let's call it getProfile. And this function is going to return a new profile. So let's do return new profile, and then we need to create that class as well. So let's do class profile, and then we're going to do public function. And let's just say we want to get the title of whatever this profile is. So we get the title, and then we're just going to return a string right now. So this is where you would pull from a database, so forth and so on. But just to keep it simple, we're going to put it up as software engineer. Okay, so now we have a standard class that calls another class. So that's all good and well. So now let's actually instantiate the class and go through what it takes in order to grab that information. Okay, so let's do first is going to be, let's just call it user equals new user, and let's do profile equals user, and then we're going to do get profile. So let's spell that right. Okay, so now we have our user, our profile. And basically what I wanted to do is, there's two different ways you can do this in PHP 7. We can do it the long way, which is if our profile exists, then we run the code to check whether or not they have a title. So we can do something like if profile get title, and if that exists, then we're just going to echo out the profile get title, which is a very long way to do this. Else we're going to echo out something like not provided. Okay, so right now we have the function to run this. So if we run this code in our browser, refresh this, we have software engineer coming up. So let's say instead of returning software engineer over here, we return null. So it's going to return not provided, because we have it where over here, if it can't get the profile, which is up here, and then it goes down to get the title, and if this returns a null, it's going to come back over here and say this. So first thing we can do is simplify this with the null coalescing. So let's take this, and I'm going to comment it out just so you can kind of see the differences. And I'm going to do something like this. So we're going to do echo profile, and if the profile exists, we're going to run our other if statement, which is going to be if profile So profile get title. Now if that exists, then we want that to be our echo value. So inside of or outside of this, we are going to say if it exists, we want that to be the echoed value. If not, then we do not provide it. And let me decrease this so it's not rapid. So not provide it. And then on the outside of our if statement here, we also want to provide another not provided. So that needs to be inside of this. And then we're just going to do not provided. So not provided there. Then we're going to close and do this. So this is essentially the same thing as this. It's just using null coalescing so that it looks a little cleaner. So this is essentially what you would do in PHP 7. What I want to do is show you how to do this exact same thing inside of PHP 8 using the NULLSafe operator. And just so we're going to do return null here, so it hits the first. So if profile is going to come null. Right now, if we were running this, because we didn't put an else statement in here, it would say nothing. But in this one, if we run it, it's still going to say the not provided because we actually have it, echoing out that statement here. Okay, so let me open up our PHP 8 file and drag this over so I can keep them in order. And I'm going to copy everything that we have over here into this file. And let's open it up over here. And we can see still works, of course. Okay, so the way that we do this inside of PHP 8 using a NULLSafe operator is, let's get rid of this junk. And we're going to do, we can also get rid of this. We're going to create our NULLSafe operator, which is going to essentially do everything we just saw, but in one line. So we're going to do echo user get profile, and then question mark, because we're saying if the profile doesn't exist, then we don't want it to do this. If it does, then we want to get the title. Otherwise, we want it to say not provided. And that is essentially it. So now if we go over here and we can refresh and see that it still works, and you can also use that question mark pretty much anywhere inside of this statement. So right now it's showing software engineer, so the code is working. But let's say we can also do it after we get user. So if the class doesn't exist, not provided. If the profile doesn't exist, not provided. We could even take it a step further and do get title. If it doesn't exist, not provided. I wouldn't go crazy with it, but the ones that you know that you're going to be returning something on, this is essentially what you need to put there. And let me actually zoom out a little bit. Let's see, appearance, zoom out. Okay, that'll make it a little bit easier for you to read it, hopefully. Okay, so essentially we take either all of this, and we turn it into just this simple line using a NULLSafe operator with it's just basically a question mark that says that is it safe to run this, or does it produce a null result? If it does, then we want to do the else statement. So that's pretty easy. NULLSafe is just a way to simplify your code. The way that we're doing it right now, it wouldn't necessarily break it because we are returning that if statement there, or over here we're returning the if statement. But over here, either way, it's going to either return not provided or software engineer. It's just a simplistic way of looking at it. Okay, so let's go back to our PHP 8, and we're going to move on to the next really cool thing, which is called a, let's see, I want to do constructor property promotion. So again, let me just add that here. We're going to do constructor property promotion. Okay. Sorry, my spelling's bad today. It seems like it's always bad when I do these videos. But anyway, So basically, whenever you're doing your constructor, you have to create a lot of properties in order to run something. So I'm going to create, again, another simple dummy like class. So let's do something that would commonly be used. Something like sign up is going to be our class name, and then we want to pass in a protected user info class, and we're just going to have that listed as user. So protected user info. And then we also want to have protected plan info, and this is going to be plan. And then let's create our constructor. So let's do public function constructor, not constructor, construct. And then we're going to redeclare it user info user plan info plan. So as you can see, it's kind of becoming redundant. And then we even go a step further, and we're going to have these variables available. So let's do this user equals user. Just a lot of redundancies that's coming here that I'm fixing to show you how to completely get rid of. And then plan. Okay, so now we have this class with this protected variable that's coming from another class. So let's do our class user info. And again, let's do protected string username. And let's do another one. Nah, I think that'll be enough. So let's do public function construct, and we're just going to pass in the username here. And then this, so it's very redundant. If you've ever had to do this before, you know how time-consuming it can be. Okay, so we got one more class. That class is going to be plan info, and then we're going to pass another protected string username, then public function construct. No, not username. This is where we want to pass the name of the plan. So we're going to do name equals, and let's just give it a default of, I guess we can do like yearly. So they have a yearly plan that is built inside of this info. That's the default if they don't add anything to it. And then finally, this name equals name. Okay, so this is what you would normally see whenever you're creating a class method approach inside of PHP. You have your variables. They're returning these this variables that can be used throughout the rest of it. So now let's just call the classes. So we're going to do user info equals new user info test account, whatever you would pass in this instance. I'm just going to pass some dummy text. So plan info equals new plan info, and let's do monthly. So monthly instead. Okay. So plan info equals monthly, and then finally let's create another sign up equals new sign up. Then we're going to pass in our user info and our plan info. And now I'm just going to echo out this this sign up information so we can see what's actually happening. So let's scroll down a little bit. So let's do echo, and we put it in pre-tag so that it's a little bit easier to read. And then I'm just going to print out the array. Alright, so then let's do print R. I could do a var dump as well, but print R is fine. Okay, so now if we come back over here and we refresh this, currently, well, we need to be on the right page for it. Okay, so when we refresh that, we can see our sign up object contains test account and monthly. Now, essentially, this is all redundant. It's, everything that we just did here is pretty much, we need to simplify it. and PHP 8 allows you to simplify it, makes it so much easier to be able to use. So what I want to do is show you how to simplify this. So I'm going to copy everything we just did, and we're going to put it inside of our PHP 8 file so you can kind of see as it's happening. And then over here I'm just going to refresh it so you can see that it's working. And then I want to show you how to simplify it. So inside of PHP 8, what we could do here is, instead of having to redeclare all of this, we can come over here and say that this variable is protected, and then this variable is protected. And right now it's throwing an issue because it says that you can't redeclare it, so we don't need these anymore. And now we have this constructor function that is returning this information that we can utilize, and we don't even need this to be declared because it's already set there as it's needed. I mean, you can use it if you want to, but essentially you don't need to. If I refresh the page over here, nothing changes. It still works exactly as it should. So let's go ahead and do the same thing over here. So we're going to do protected, and then here we're also going to do protected. So not only can you declare the I guess the level of it, we can also declare the type it is. So we have protected, and we want this to be a string because that's what we set it up as there. And then this one's also going to be a string. So in the end, we can remove this, and then once again we can delete this because now it's just assumed. So clean that up a little bit. Okay, so now if I come back over here and refresh, everything still works, but everything is consolidated. So we went from all of this code that you see here to just these simple class and methods. So that's pretty cool, but you can also take it a step further. So we have it where, you know, this is working. Let's say if we didn't provide plan information. So I'm going to come down and I'm going to copy this just to show you. So plan info, and let's say we didn't want to provide anything to this. We have it's being set as yearly, so our second array should produce a yearly result, so yearly, monthly. So essentially the same way that you would normally call your functions and use your functions or your methods, but it's completely simplified. Everything is, you know, it's a one-liner, and you can even, you know, take it a step further if you want to make it a little bit prettier for the rest of the people that are going to be using it. You can come over here and, you know, add these all onto new lines. If, you know, with two of them it doesn't really matter, but let's say if you had, you know, 5 or 6 different variables inside of your constructor, you might want to add them on different lines. So in the meantime, I'm just going to keep them on the same line because, you know, there's no need for it to wrap right now. But you could essentially do that as well. Or you know, in best case would be to call another method or another class using that information that produces those variables inside of your constructor, or, you know, whatever function you're trying to use, so you're not having to bog it down up here. Okay, so that is pretty much the constructor. Not the constructor. Yes, the constructor property promotion. That's pretty much, you know, this right here. It simplifies PHP 7 version of it. So let's go down a little bit more, and we're going to start another one. In this one, we're going to go over match expressions. This one you should love. So match expressions. So typically, whenever you are doing something inside of PHP, you are utilizing something like, what is it called? Switch case. So match replaces switch. So let me just create a dummy class. So let's do send, and that's going to be our class, and then I'm just going to create a variable called message that equals new send, just so we have a class that we can call. I mean, you don't have to do it this way. I mean, I'll show you how to do it the other way. So let's say if you want to do test equals send. Let's just do it this way for now. Okay, so normally in PHP 7 you would do switch, and then you're going to have that test, And then inside of this, you're going to have case send, and then let's just say type equals. And if you were like sending something like a text message or something like that from a PHP application or an API or something like that, you could this is where these kind of variables would come into play. And then we need our break, and then let's say we have a second one that's going to be case remove, and this type equals remove message. And then we're going to break again. You can also put in a default, but I'm not even going to go that far into it. So let's say right now I want to do echo type, and let me go ahead and put in a break tag after this so that it's just cleaner looking. Okay, so let's go back to our PHP 7, refresh, and we're sending over send, which sends over the the send message type. We could also do something like this. So we have our message here, our class here to kind of dictate what's being sent over to us. And you could do something like in class, or not in class, get class. So get class, and then we're going to send over this message. And because it's the we're sending over the send method, it's going to return send message. So it works the same way. But I mean, you can normally do it with just a variable where you're sorting through it, or you can use it where it's kind of a dynamic class object. And then it's just getting the class, and then it's sending this over, remove. If we send over, instead of new send, instead of that, we did like a remove, it will work out the same way. So I want to show you how to do this in PHP 8, which I think you're going to love because it's so much more simplified. Okay, so let's come over here. I'm going to copy this code, and we're going to go into here. See echo. I'm going to add my break tag so we can keep it separated. And for match expressions, I'm going to keep everything else the same. And let's try it first using the test. So what we want to do here is, it's a thing called match. So we're going to do match, and then the function is key value paired. So we do, instead of case, we just basically have it where this key equal this value, and comma separate it. And then again, let's do this key equals this value, and get rid of the breaks. So match is essentially this. Let me go ahead and do type equals so that we can see that there, and we need to have a semicolon after the curly brackets. So if we switch over to PHP 8, it should still say send message. So basically, we took this amount of code right here, and we just consolidated it to 2 lines. And then we can also do the exact same thing that we did over here with the get class, because I'm going to show you something with this a little bit later. But get class, we're pushing over the send. Let's see, get class, and then message. So we're still pushing over to send. So refresh, still works. So this is pretty cool. The match, I think I'm going to be using that a lot more than I use case statements. Or not case statements, but switch statements, because it's just cleaner, it's less code I got to remember, and you're essentially just doing 2 lines of code compared to 6 lines of code for the internal part of the switch statement. Just the way, if you have 10 different switches that you need to worry about, then this will make it so much easier, because it returns the value of what you're looking for based on the key that it's seeing. Okay, so let's move a little bit further on, and I'm going to show you what I was going to do with this, but let's see the old ways of doing it. And first let's add another break tag so we get that out of the way. And this is going to be number 4, and it is called object class. Okay, so in PHP 7, they kind of sort of allow you to do this, but not really. So actually, there's not really a way to do this. You can't use a dynamic class name inside of a PHP call in PHP 7. So I'm just going to put in, error, cannot use class with dynamic class name. So nothing to do here in PHP 7. So let's switch back over to PHP 8. Do our echo break. And nothing to copy here. So I'm just going to copy the comment, and then I'm going to take this, we're going to copy it and bring it down. So what I want to do here is basically everything is the same. I'm using this class, so I'm not going to redeclare it. So let's get rid of this, and we're just going to have the message part. So you are currently getting this class here, but I don't want it to do it that way in PHP 8. The way I want it to do it in PHP 8 is I want it to take this variable and we're going to just pass class, which is going to do the exact same thing as this. So this is an object class, so we're creating an object here, and then we're telling it that we want it to just basically pass the class to it, and that class name is going to be what gets sent over as send or receive or remove. So if we come over here and we refresh this, it still works. So I don't know how often you would use this, because I mean the way that I have this class and this basically the way this class is created, it's not common. I mean, there's nothing inside of it. But you would call, like if you had another a method inside of this, like if you called send message or something like that, you would do that and then send message. So that and then send message, where I don't have that right now. And you may recognize this whenever you're doing like a public versus a private method inside of a class. Whenever you want to call it from another place, you use these 2 colons. So it's kind of the same thing, but I'm just going to use class because I just want it to get like a generic class from the object, which is the send, and then it's going to be passing that send as this variable here. So pretty simple. I mean, I don't know how often you would use it, but it is a way that you don't have to you don't have to create a function inside of your switch statement if you're trying to pull your variable from a class or a method compared to pulling it from a variable itself. Okay, so now we have that. Now, next thing that's pretty cool that I think that you might like as well, let's not go to PHP 8 yet. Let's go to PHP 7, and we're going to do 5. This is going to be named parameters. Name parameters are pretty cool, and I'll show you why. Okay, so let's say we have a class invoice. No, not that way. There we go. So let's say we have a class invoice, and we want to provide all this information that we need to get to it. So let's say we have a private customer. And then we have private amount. Again, having to type all this stuff out in PHP 8, you don't have to, so you'll see that whenever I go to do that part, it's so much quicker. I think that's like my favorite part of PHP 8 is how you're able to consolidate everything. Okay, so let's do public function, then we're going to do construct, and then inside of this construct, we're going to pass the customer, the amount, and the date. And then we're going to say this customer equals customer, just kind of getting all this out of the way. So this amount equals amount, and this date equals date. Okay, so now we have our class. Let's go ahead and set up the call to it. So we're going to say invoice equals new invoice. And then let's just say test account for the customer name. It's a $100 invoice and new date time. So that should be all of the information that we need. So let's come in here and do echo pre, and then we're going to do print our invoice. Okay, so let's come back over to 7. Unsupported operand. Oh, okay, I need to not have a minus there. There we go. Okay, so now we have our date time object, our $100 invoice, and then the customer name that's being passed. So this right here could get very confusing. Like, let's say you're calling this right here from another file, and you would have to, like, you know, hover over this, click on it in order to go to this, and then figure out what it's actually looking for. You're like, okay, so test amount, what does that mean? Is that for the customer? Is that for the, or test account customer name, business name? Is it the project title? You know, whatever it is. So this actually helps you consolidate what you're actually seeing here. And it's, you know, a name parameter is something that you could do, like you could do something like this, like customer equals this, and then amount equals this, and it would still work, but it could get kind of weird looking. I mean, if you're calling it, you know, this way, then you could be, I don't know, it's a weird way of doing it. You could do it this way, but that's not how I would recommend doing it. You know, in PHP 7, this was the way you had to do it. It's kind of ugly. So I'm going to show you how to do this in PHP 8, but I'm not going to copy and paste. I'm going to show you how much quicker it is to write this PHP 8 code compared to what we just wrote there. Okay, so let's go here. We're going to create our class invoice again. Then we're going to do public function construct, so private string customer, private int amount, and then private date time date, and then that's it for the constructor function. Well, that's actually it for the entire class. So now let's do invoice, and I'm just going to copy this from what we had over here. So essentially, you know, one line of code compared to however many it took to create this. I mean, that's 8 lines of code, 7 lines of code, something like that, and it turns into 1 line of code. So much quicker to be able to write it out that way. Okay, so now let's get to the actual part of this and the name parameters. So we have our new invoice, and what I want to do is I want to be able to tell myself what I'm looking for whenever I go to look at this code in another file. So we're going to do customer colon, and then we're going to do amount colon, and then date colon. So we have our named parameters. So customer equals this, amount equals this, date equals this. Now, one thing you have to worry about is, well, let me just show you how it looks. One thing you have to worry about, date must be date time, data, date time. Okay, so one thing you have to worry about whenever you are doing this kind of thing is if customer name currently matches the customer variable declared, if that variable ever changes, this will not work any longer. And I'm actually going to copy this so I can show you that it works versus it not working. So everything's passed as it is. So if you're managing your own functions, then this shouldn't really be an issue. So it kind of depends on, you know, a preference from you whether or not you actually want to do this. But let's say customer 2 is now the new customer. If we go to refresh our page, now unknown name parameter customer does not exist. This would have to be changed to match this variable inside of our class object, or our class method. So you don't have to do it this way, if you're worried about that kind of thing, I would say, it'll be okay most of the time whenever you're writing the code. If you're using a library from somebody else, if they ever go in there and change how they're declaring their functions and you're hitting those functions and those methods and the variables and they change it, your code's going to break. So be kind of weary about using this unless you can kind of guarantee that your variables inside of your methods are not going to change. So let me revert this so it works. I'm going to add another break tag here because I want to go on to the next part, which is going to be number 6. So let's go to number 6, and number 6 is probably one of the most exciting and most requested functionality things to happen to PHP since it started, but they are string helpers. And you might already know where I'm going with this, but I'm going to do it the hard way anyway. So let's do string equals, and you might have a mixture of different strings, but I'm going to kind of show you all of them at the same time. So let's say you have an invoice, and then a number, and then you have, I don't know, it's received. So you might get a string at the end, a string in the beginning, or even, I'm going to do here and say mid. You might have a string in the middle. Currently, to look for these things, it is a process. PHP 8 created functions specifically to get rid of this process. So let me show you how to do it in PHP 7. So we're going to echo starts with inv, and then we're actually going to run or create our PHP code. So we got substring compare, and then we're going to be passing the string. We want to look for inv underscore, make sure it's in the 0 position, and then we want to check the string length equals 0. So string length of inc, let's see, equals 0. And if it does, we're going to use the short version of null coalescing to echo out what we want it to echo out. So let's say we want to do yes, it does exist versus no, it does not exist. And then let's close that out. Okay, so now come back over to our 7 and refresh. Starts with inv yes. So in order to get this right here out, we had to write all of this code. We can use the exact same code to compare it to the end. So let's say starts with is going to turn into ends with, and we're going to do underscore rec, and I'm going to copy this or remove this, and we're going to do substring compare string, make sure it hits the correct variable, and then instead of doing a 0 here, we're going to do minus string length equals 0, yes or no. So if we refresh, ends with rec yes, and let me add some more formatting here so it looks a little bit better. Echo out a break tag here, and then let's go ahead and do another break tag here. Okay, so we can see that it starts with inv yes, it ends with rec yes. If we change this, let's just say we put in some other kind of variable, it no longer ends with it, so that's what we want it to do. So that's a lot of thinking in order to get this correct. Okay, so next thing, I'm going to go ahead and just copy this, and we're going to do search for the middle. So contains mid. Okay, so let me go ahead and get rid of this because that's not the same functionality. So we're going to do string pose, and then we're going to do string. This is probably the closest to the newest function out of all of them. But yeah, that should do it. So let's refresh that. Contains mid, yes. Okay, so that is a bunch of stuff just to be able to get something that starts with something, something that ends with something, and something that's in the middle of something else. what we can do now is inside of PHP 8, do it very simple. So I'm going to take this string and we're going to use the exact same string. Actually, you know what? I'm going to take this whole part right here because I need to have the if statements. So we're going to do, yeah, I think that'll be fine. I'll just copy this one. Okay, so starts with invoice. Okay, so we can get rid of all of this. And we're going to do string starts with string inv. That's it. So we replace that entire line of code with that. Still works the same way. So alright, so let's do the next one. And I'm going to do echo my break tag twice. Alright, so let me see. I want to copy this, and we are going to make it do the ends with. So ends with RAC. So instead of doing string starts with, we're going to do string ends with. And then underscore RAC. So perfect. Alright, last one. And now we're going to do contains. So contains underscore mid, and then instead of doing string ends with, we finally have string contains. And mid there. Alright, so now if we come back over to R8 and refresh, everything's good. So wait, that's 7. Refresh. There we go. Everything's good now. So yeah, this is something that PHP community has been asking for forever, and now we finally have a way to do it that doesn't involve all of this complicated math that you have to think of. Anyway, so just one of the things I'm super excited about. Let's see, I'm gonna do the last thing now, and let's do it in 7 first. So let's do echo break tag. Okay, so the last thing I want to go over is, let's do 6. I'm just going to kind of go over like the, I guess, a general overview of union and pseudo types. So union and pseudo types. So let me just write out a simple foobar class. So let's do class foo. And we're going to create a public function, let's just call it bar, and it's going to be passing foo. And finally, we're just going to do echo complete. Okay, so what I want to do here is to basically create a way that we can pass this, because right now if we go to run this, it's not, this just doesn't work in PHP 7. Well, I'll show you in a second. So let's say we're going to create a variable called 1. It's going to equal to new foo, and then we're going to create a variable called 2, which is going to be equal to new foo as well. And then see, the thing that's not going to work is if I go to run 2 bar and then I pass in 1, this should work because it's expecting foo, and we're declaring foo, so this should work. So I guess let me go ahead and test that out. So PHP 7, refresh. Okay, so complete. That works fine. What's not going to work is if this passes a let me do my break tag. If we do 2 bar and then we pass in a null, because it is expecting foo. So if we go to run this, it's going to tell us that argument foo must be type foo. So the way that you would get around this in PHP 7 is you would come up here and you'd put a question mark in front of that, which is essentially like doing a new union pseudo type kind of thing. It's similar, but you know, that should allow that part to work. So now we have a complete. So in PHP 7, you're kind of limited in how we do this. But let's say I wanted to create this exact same thing in PHP 8. Instead of having to do this, we could come over here and declare, what kind of variables it is. So we do string null, and let's say we can even pass in another variable, not a variable but a function, and let's say we wanted to do test. So this will allow us to pass in the foo, a string, or a null. And as you can see there, let me do my echo break tag. So as you can see there, it completes all three of them because essentially it's looking for foo, string, or null in order to access this method to be able to produce a value for us. So I'm going to echo out foo here so it produces the actual results. Well, it's not going to echo that out because foo is a method that currently I'm not going to go into, but you would echo it out once you get the information out of foo. You could echo out other variables that come across. But I think that should cover most of it. I feel like I'm missing something. So let's see, we got union types, string helpers. No, I think that's it. That's 7 things. So these are the 7 things that I recently started playing around with inside of PHP, and with all of the information that we're pushing in, gives us 123 lines of code. This gives us 136 lines of code. So not a huge difference because of the way we're kind of pushing everything out, but everything is very consolidated. So like, I have things on new lines and everything like that, but it's so much cleaner to be able to look at PHP 8 code compared to PHP 7, and I think I got 7.4 installed on here, and then 8.1.3 installed here. So pretty cool functions. And if you're getting into PHP, or if you've been in PHP for a while, and you might have seen some stuff on here that you really like. If you did, give me a thumbs up and let me know which one was your favorite, or maybe I missed one. If I missed one, let me know in the comments below, so that I can get, take a look at it, because this is the ones that I've been messing around with lately, and I think that a lot of these are game changers once you kind of get into the more detailed parts about it. But for the most part, this could, really clean up and consolidate your code a lot, especially, the way match is done. I love the way match is done. It's so much cleaner than using a switch statement. And then I also like that you can come in here and declare your parameters inside of it and tell what it is and all this kind of stuff without having to rewrite that data so many times. So anyway, that's going to do it for this video. I do appreciate you taking a look. Well, that's it. Talk to you later.